You kept pushing on, but then you went too far. When your ship has sailed and all your dreams are lost, everything is wrong, you feel like it's your fault. Just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just hold me. Just hold me. Just hold me. You're stronger now than you ever been. You gotta leave now, it's time to catch the wind. You will climb up high and look through the clouds, and when you're feeling low, I know you'll bounce back. Oh, and just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call me. Just call me. Just call me. Just call me.
The biggest wild card of this playoff round has come and gone. Now we come to the final race of the round of 12. It is race number 3 in the round of 12 here from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. It is the Charlotte Roval. Good evening, everybody. My name is Frank Marchese. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. Alongside me, my broadcast partner, David Motorspa. David, we're here for the first time, or at least for you, it's been the first time in a little while. Very, very big race that we have stumbled upon here. We have 2 drivers that are already set to go into the round of 8. We have 4 that are set to go into the round of 8 once they take the green flag, and 6 drivers are going to be fighting for 2 spots to try to continue their fight for a championship.
And what a great track to do it at. As you mentioned, here at the Roval road course, you got those left and right hand turns, throwing a twist in everything. So these drivers are going to have to be on their toes and really keep in mind what they're doing tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. As we'll take a look now at the point standings coming into tonight. Remember, these are not the chase standings. These are the actual point standings as they stand. Kenny Coppola is one of the 4 drivers that can lock themselves in just by taking the green flag. Shane and Chris Davis, as well as Wayne Bowen, can also lock themselves in just by taking the green flag. Kyle Holden and Justin Belmonte. Belmonte having won at Talladega a couple of weeks last week. Holden having won at Texas a couple of weeks ago are already locked in. Randy Mullins, Warren Young, Barry Sanders, John Binder, Tim Wortman Jr. and Chad Sullivan are all going to be fighting for those final 2 spots in the top 8. They've had some technical issues there as we are looking through the rest of the point standings as they go by. And David, you think of Talladega, of course, being the big wild card. Anyone could have a good or a bad race here, but this is a race and a racetrack. You really are going to need the skill. Riding around may not be all you need to do tonight.
That's right, and keeping that in mind, as you mentioned, that battle really heating up around that cut line. Just a few positions left for those drivers to point their way into the round of 8 coming up. So playoff drivers having to keep that in mind. And of course, being a road course, here with drivers that are used to oval racing, they're really going to have to focus on some of those maybe dark horse drivers that are outside of the playoffs, taking up some of those spots and getting in front of them.
You see the team point standings up on the stream. Beast Mode Performance Team 1 has pretty much all but clinched the team championship. They have grown out to a big lead. It's going to take something very, very impressive in order to start moving some positions here in the later stages of this season. However, if you look down towards the middle of that table, Beast Mode Performance 2 and Dark Tempest Motorsports are rather close to each other. You also have Warrior Racing 2 and Leveneer Racing are very, very close to each other as well. So there could be some changes in those point standings positions. As we are getting set to go into the qualifying session here from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. It'll be a 10-minute qualifying session, and right now we are moments away from getting on to the racetrack. I believe Tim Wortman is going to be one of, if not the first car out onto the racetrack for this qualifying session as we are getting set to go one more time here in the round of 12. As you'll notice, again, naturally, the cars with the yellow band over the windscreen and on the bumper are playoff running cars or playoff contending cars that will be cut down again to 8 coming up after this race. Seeing a plethora of drivers out onto the racing surface right now. There is one of the drivers trying to point his way in. John Binder. Qualifying going to be very, very important for Binder as well as Wortman. 5 points out on the wrong side of the cut line is Binder. Tim Wortman as well. 7 points on the wrong side of the cut line. David, qualifying going to be very, very crucial for them.
100%. Qualifying at a road course, getting in good position early, making sure that you are where you want to be, and of course not getting in anybody's way if you do have to fight your way to the front. Very, very key here, especially at a track like the Charlotte Road.
Absolutely. Is getting onto his first qualifying lap is John Binder. Warren Young, he is 5 points on the right side of the cut line. He is starting his first lap in that number 8 Chevrolet Camaro. Only a couple of guys have not yet attempted to go out for qualifying yet. Caden Norfree, Chris Davis, Nicholas Atwood, Wayne Bowen, and Justin Belmonte, last week's winner at Talladega. The only drivers that have yet to go out and attempt a qualifying run. Everyone else has gone out there at least once. As looking through, it looks like Barry Sanders in the 88 right now on a hot lap. Set the fastest third sector of any driver. Also important for Barry, 5 points on the wrong side of the cut line is this number 88. Looking good through NASCAR 3 and 4 here. Those curbs tall curbs here at Charlotte for this Roval, and David, that's certainly going to be something these guys are going to have to contend with all race long.
It does certainly seem to upset those cars as they go through that chicane, but from what I've been seeing of these drivers, just about every single one of them taking advantage, trying to cut those corners as close as they can and getting up onto that curbing. So just have to be careful not to go too far and do any damage under the race car there.
See the drivers highlighted in yellow on the timing tower. Those are drivers that are in the playoffs. Kyle Holton, who currently sits on the pole at a 119.94. You see him highlighted in green. That's to denote that he is locked in to the next round after his win at Texas to open up the round of 12. And he is a good 0.6 of a second quicker than anybody else that has put a lap down on circuit. And again, this is going to be one of those races where, yes, your overall pace is going to put you where you want to be to start this race here in qualifying. But David, you're going to have to really try to maintain this car and stay on track if you want any chance at being in a contention to win this race tonight.
Keeping those times where they need to be, and of course Holden already locked into the playoffs, trying to take away some of those points from these other drivers, laying down that quick lap, even though he doesn't have to, just making sure that those competitors fighting for that last spot just have that much more that they have to fight for to make their way to fight against him in the round of 8.
He was fastest of all in all 4 sectors. He's going to improve his time. That was what I was looking for. Just a little bit from a 1994 to a 1989 as we see Kenny Coppola, your current overall points leader as it stands right now, invalidated his first lap, fastest of all through the first sector on his second lap, coming down to take the checkered flag here just under halfway through the qualifying session.
Course time running down for some of these other drivers, as we mentioned, a few that were still in the pits, not quite setting times yet. So they got just a little bit of time left before they won't make it out quite in time to lay down both laps here.
It's the 4 of Nick King, 13th quickest, 122.53 his first go around. Second slowest of the drivers that have put down a time. 20 cars set to roll off on the grid here. A little bit loose coming through that chicane, had to catch it, and King was about a half a tenth slower on that lap, as we'll take a look and see last week's winner, Justin Belmonte. Going to complete his first lap. Aaron Matthews not that far behind on track, looking to complete his first lap as well as Belmonte's first time. Hit a really slow first sector, which invalidated the lap. Here's Aaron Matthews. Should have enough time to get through this lap. Matthews goes up to 9th quickest on his first attempt. But David, it sounds like you were correct a moment ago. Chris Davis, Caden Norfrey, Wayne Bowen, and Nicholas Atwood will not be setting qualifying times here in this session.
An unfortunate result of racing here at a road course. Even the outlap takes just that extra amount of time, so you can't wait until the last minute to get out there and lay your qualifying time down. But could be part of the strategy of these drivers too. I know that coming into road courses, especially with that sharp turn 1 here at the Roval, it is a little bit of strategy to try to play towards the back of the field so that you don't get run over on that first green flag start.
Absolutely is. Matthews coming through the backstretch chicane. Justin Belmonte coming through NASCAR 3 and 4, set the fastest first sector that last time through. Jumps over the curbs, gets all the way out. Belmonte will go unregistered, as he did not set a valid lap time, must have gone off track somewhere And Aaron Matthews was not better on his second lap than he was on his first. Seeing and hearing out on track right now, there is Jordan Schmeets. Hunter Carmichael out on track as well in the number 3. Those two have already put their qualifying laps in. Looking to get a little bit of extra practice, which around a place like the Charlotte Roval, where you're going to be doing 67 laps tonight, not a bad idea to get every lap and every corner you can.
Getting a feel for the car, understanding how those tires are going to feel after a few hot laps, and can't agree with you more. Nothing better than staying out there, getting that extra time in while you can, and you got the track to yourself in these sessions, so might as well make full use of all that time.
Schmeets and Carmichael starting 4th and 5th, so not quite next to each other, but about as close as you can get for these two. Everyone except for Davis, Norfrey, and Bowen at least attempted a qualifying time. And with just 52 seconds left in the qualifying session, it would appear as though Kyle Holden will take what would amount to be his 5th pole of the season. Breaking the deadlock of 4 between himself and Shane Davis at 4 apiece. Still 4 behind Kenny Coppola, who has 8 thus far on the year.
Just padding those stats lines, never know when it's going to come to help you, and certainly makes you feel better at the end of the day knowing, hey, I was the fastest in qualifying, I earned this spot, and especially at a road course. Like I mentioned, getting that track position early can really pay off and really help you later on.
Absolutely, and as mentioned before, Holden is locked into the next round, so no real big issue there for him either way, as we will now take a look at the grid here for tonight's race. Starting on pole with a time of 1:19.894 will be the aforementioned Kyle Holden. Kenny Coppola will round out the front row. Shane Davis and Jordan Schmeets will make up row number 2, with Hunter Carmichael and Randy Mullins in row number 3. Barry Sanders and Tim Wortman Jr. in row number 4. Aaron Matthews and John Binder will round out the top half of the field. Be Warren Young and Kendall Leveren in row number 6. Row 7 will go to Ryan Huff and Nick King. Paul Whiteley to 82 degrees, so very, very warm is what this track is here tonight. 104 degree track temperature, which is just going to make this very difficult racetrack just that much more difficult, as these drivers are going to be slipping and sliding all night.
Drivers, of course, contending with the conditions here on the road course as well as each other. So as you mentioned, will be interesting to see how they can keep these cars under control as they make their way around on the pace lap, getting ready to get started here at the Charlotte Roval.
See the wind blowing quite a bit as well. 11 miles an hour we saw it top out at. There it is again towards that northwest. So that's also going to play a little bit of games with these drivers as they work their way through the 67 laps on offer here tonight. As per usual, 2 stages. Stage breaks will be on laps 20 and laps 40 here this evening before the final, say about 22 lap run to the finish to get us to lap 67 after the cautions cycle themselves out. And David, it's a road course race. It's in the playoffs. It's a long pace lap. Plenty of chance to psych yourself out of something.
It certainly is. I know as a driver personally, the worst time is right here under this pace lap. I'm always psyching myself out while I'm racing. So to see these drivers on this first lap, I'm excited to see what's going to happen, especially heading into turn 1. You're going to get on the gas early and get a lot of speed coming in there. You just got to be real careful to keep it woed up and not run over the guy in front of you. So we'll see what they do here, and excited to get it going as they're just finally now making their way through that back chicane on the Roval here.
Couple of onboard cameras here. Kyle Holden looking off the back of him, getting set to go. Barry Sanders, again, 5 points on the outs, looking in. Also Nick King with our gyro cam here this evening. It's going to be a fun one, especially here on these bankings, listening to these cars try to work their way back up through the gears as we are getting set to go racing here through NASCAR 3 and 4 here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, getting set to finish off the round of 12 here in the playoffs. Kyle Holden leading the field down. Kenny Coppola there as well. Restart zone right in the middle of the final chicane. Green flag is in the air. 67 laps here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Holden, of course, not quite able to get the jump that he was hoping for. Coppola taking full advantage, going out to the lead early on. Looks like there was some trouble in turn 1 as we have, I believe, the 79 machine around in turn 1. Looks like everybody got by okay. 79 going back the right way now.
Shane Davis, unfortunately for him, as we'll take a look in just a moment and see what happened with him. Shane Davis is well and clear by taking the green flag tonight. He was 77 points clear of the cut line, so just by taking the green flag, he was safe. So no real concern for him as we look through the field. Randy Mullins, one of the 6 drivers who is going to be fighting for position. Nick King right up on the back end of the 8 of Warren Young.
Drivers, of course, trying to take advantage of everybody being bunched up from the start, so get those positions early on before everybody spreads out and those positions become a little bit harder to come by. Have to argue that the logic here is very sound, and making their way back onto the oval 3 and 4 turns and heading towards that front chicane, about to get our first lap underway.
And again, if you're just joining us, the drivers in yellow are the playoff drivers. The 2 drivers, Holden and Belmonte, in green are the 2 drivers that have secured their spots in the round of 8, via race wins. As Belmonte on the outside of Ryan Huff right now. This is for 13th. Huff takes the position.
Of course, as you mentioned earlier, Belmonte, nothing to worry about. He had that win earlier on in this round of 12, so he is locked in, but certainly trying to keep those other drivers from advancing. So he's putting up a fight right now to the inside as they approach this turn. We'll see how he does. Looks like he makes it clear, and they're heading back around shortly to get onto the banked turns, heading towards that back chicane.
Back up to the front, Kenny Coppola has put a 1.5 second lead on Kyle Holden. So Coppola, again, another driver that was locked in via points. He was 85 points clear of the cut line. So good to go going into tonight. He is fine. Jordan Schmitz has moved up a spot. Hunter Carmichael there as well. Take a look now and see what happened to Shane Davis here at the start. Wiggle off the start, and maybe did he... Yep, too hot. More or less what Harvick did a couple of years ago, no?
More or less, just a little too hot heading into turn 1 there. Couldn't get the brakes to slow him down quite enough, and paid the consequences. He tried to make the turn there, heading into that first turn.
On board of Aaron Matthews. Matthews not in the playoffs, unfortunately, for that number 5. Holding back right now. But, oh, there goes Leveren around. Saw Kendall Leveren get loose coming up the hill, and that's a very difficult corner to try to get right. It's uphill. All of your momentum is falling away from you. Not to mention you're going into a corner you can't see around.
I believe that might have even been a little bit of a checkup, just trying to stay off the bumper of that 5 machine that you witnessed, just getting on the brakes a little too hard. And as you mentioned, sending that car around as all that momentum is going up and away from you at that point.
Ooh, off on the grass is Tim Wortman. That's a big spot for him. 3rd longest odds of getting into this next round of the playoffs. Let's jump on board with that number 83, just so you can kind of see what we were talking about. Floats the car out here, but this is the next section here, is the one that we were talking about. So difficult to get right. Weight falling away, you're uphill, and then you can't see anything around that corner.
And if you were listening to the throttle there, notice how long he was off of the throttle, just letting that car drift. You really can't get back into it much before you start getting ready for the next turn, before you're out here onto the quad oval again. So really just amazing effort of these drivers, and especially from LeVron there, keeping it straight when he did, just to save that car and not cause any sort of caution there. Just absolutely amazing skill.
Barry Sanders, who you see right here in the middle of the screen, the number 88. 2 points clear of Wortman, but he was 5 points down on Young, and he currently sits 4 positions ahead of Warren Young. There's Warren Young back in the 10th spot in the number 8. So it's about as close as you could get right now here in the early stages of this race. Top of the field has more or less separated themselves. Kenny Coppola 2 seconds clear of Holden, who's about 3.5 seconds clear of Schmitz, who's about a second clear of Carmichael, who's about 3 seconds clear of this trio that we're watching now. It's already a quarter of the way through this first stage. You see the difference in line there between the 83 and the 88.
It certainly does make me wonder, with those leaders getting out to such a great jump, are they maybe using their tires too much too early? We'll have to check back on that here in a couple of laps, see how their times are holding up. But right now, those leaders, as you said, checked out and well in front of our 3rd place driver, that 41 of Schmitz.
Now, if you watch the race this past Sunday, a lot of the drivers all said that tires really didn't have an effect as far as the wear goes, as Wortman really overshoots that final chicane. That allows Sanders to get right up to him, and I believe this could be a spot. Ooh, a pass for a transfer spot into the round of 8 right now for Sanders. 5 positions clear. He was 5 points back coming into today.
Certainly doing what he needs to do to try to see his way into that round of 8, and driving that car real well right now, keeping it nice and smooth as he makes his way through the infield turns here, and certainly doing what he needs to do, getting past Wortman there early. Mullins, of course, now close behind Wortman, sizing him up, seeing what he can do to try to set this pass up as they come through the high-speed section and down the back straightaway before the chicane.
On board with Randy Mullins right now. Mullins came in 21 points clear of the cut line, so a couple less drivers showed up to this race who would have been mathematically in with the green flag. Unfortunately not. Big dive into the chicane. Does he make it? Yes, he does. Does he have enough momentum to keep the position? Yes, he does. And just that half a lap of squabbling between Mullins and Wortman has allowed Sanders to jump ahead by 3 seconds.
You say that 3 seconds isn't a lot, but as you mentioned there, less than half a lap of separation, and this battle is still continuing to go on between Wortman and Mullins. Sanders getting out to a comfortable, almost sizable almost 5 second lead at this point, so certainly going to slow you down if you are battling with somebody. Something to keep in the back of your mind, and certainly for Sanders, something he wants to see these drivers keep doing behind him.
Absolutely on board now with John Binder in the number 33. And there's an even better example. You can't see around the corner. You can't see the rumble strips on the outside of the corner until you're pretty much on them. But Binder, another driver who is 5 points out of the playoffs, looking in. Currently running in ninth. The problem with that is he is ahead of Young, but Young's right behind him.
Only one position up on him for now, but of course stage points possibly playing a big effect as they go around here in the back chicane. 5 facing the wrong way. We'll see if he can get it back around quickly and make up that lost time.
33 tried to make the move and unfortunately did not go well for him. Take a look and see here again. Coming down the back straightaway, tried to make the big dive. And not quite.
Just full lockup on those brakes. That 33, of course, diving into the 5. The 5 just being in an unfortunate position at that point, taking the hit and going around.
Incidents from earlier on. There's Nick King in the number 4. A little bit too much gas coming out of the corner. Very, very easy to do there. Lap 3, this was Ryan Huff in the number 93 going off in the chicane. And just too hot. Ooh, into the tire wall there. Kendall Leveren, we saw him with the slide. Here it is again. We were on board with the 5 for this. Wow, did a great job of saving that now that we've seen it from the outside view. As that was happening, Nicholas Atwood in the number 24 runs long in turn 3. So you're more or less caught up with all of the incidents that have happened here thus far. 2 drivers no longer running. Ryan Huff and Nicholas Atwood both done for the evening.
Both non-playoff drivers there, so nothing too much for them to worry about. Of course, just earning some points and getting out here and trying to keep teammates and competitors from getting into that final group of 8. But
boy, Leveren.
There he goes, right around the outside. Just carried too much speed into that turn, as we saw there just in the background.
Boy, did he ever.
Man, that is such a tough turn to get right. And as you mentioned, you're at the mercy of your momentum at that point. It's all just going away from you, the way the turn's banked, the way the turn's angled. Just bad situation for Leveren there.
Let's take a look at the slide here one more time from Leveren, and boy, oh boy, did he slide. There he goes. Where does he end up? Ooh, hits the wall there, and then ends up... He ends up at what was originally supposed to be the course here at Charlotte. For those of you who don't know, this was not necessarily the original layout for this circuit. There was another layout that was planned that for here, instead of going onto the course from here, that little bit of track there to the left, you were supposed to cut in there, do a U-turn, and then come back and do a U-turn back onto the oval, which would have added a couple more corners here. But fortunately, they decided to scrap that, and that is where Leveren ended up. Jordan Schmeets and Hunter Carmichael right now running for 3rd. One of the closer battles out on track right now. I did a couple of races here this weekend. I would have never gotten that close to the grass in the final chicane. I don't know how these guys are keeping it straight off of the grass.
And of course, the advantage for these drivers is actually there on the front stretch. That whole section of grass, as we're calling it, is actually a bit of turf. So the car isn't upset quite as much as it would be on grass, but still not where most drivers would want to find themselves. Not 100% sure that iRacing has updated it yet, but with the way these drivers are driving, I have a strong feeling that the turf has replaced the grass here on the iRacing service. So props to the drivers for figuring it out and keeping it straight regardless of whether it's turf or grass. As you mentioned, not a place that I would like to find myself while I'm racing the Roval.
Yeah, no, I've run too many road course races in GT cars on this sim and clipped grass in way too many of those races to even want to consider it. As battle for third raging on here. Nick King right now on the back of Paul Whitley. Battle for 12th between these two. King getting a very good run into NASCAR 1. To take that momentum right down to the bottom. +1 position for Nick King. He started 14th. He's up to 12th. Looking right now, Caden Norfree has had an incident on track a couple of laps ago. Here he is in number 44. This is getting back onto the NASCAR oval. It's like he may have just pulled off and said no mas. And Shane Davis has also had an incident. Boy, things started off so well, started third and just never matriculated from there. I think that might have been gas brake at the same time right there for him.
Certainly a great paint scheme on that car, but unfortunately just not able to get out of the way of trouble today. So Davis in the pit taking some repairs right now.
That is Kyle Holden without a front end. Kyle Holden started on the pole. He's been running second. What on earth happened to him? We'll take a look and see right now. This is earlier this lap. Coming onto the NASCAR oval. Ooh, catches wall. Oh, wow. That little side clip of the wall did all of that damage?
Unfortunately, it looks like it was enough to tear the front clip of that car off. From the angle we were watching just a moment ago, it definitely didn't seem like that big of a hit, but that angle that we were just on there does show that he made some pretty hard contact with at least the right front of that vehicle, so it might have been enough just to upset the connection point between the front clip and the rest of the car there. So tears it off, and he's on pit lane getting some repairs right now.
They say these things are built like tanks as well. It was a very rusted tank, if anything. Is Schmeetz and Carmichael now battling for second position here. That would drop Holden back to 15th position. Again, he's already good to go for the next round. As these two right now are the only two drivers that are within 1 second of each other. And the only two drivers who are within 15 seconds of the race lead.
I was gonna say, and worth mentioning now with Holden being in pit lane, now making his way back out. Coppola now very comfortably in position for that stage win, and of course setting himself up pretty well to earn any of those extra points, and then think about pit stops, maybe early, maybe ahead of time. We'll see what he chooses for his strategy, but definitely setting pretty comfortable as it stands right now.
Points, overall points leader coming into tonight's race. pointed his way into the next round by taking the green flag, and the only driver in the field whose name is not Kyle Holden to get into the 119 second bracket, 119.49. Next fastest car on the track is the driver currently behind him. That's Hunter Carmichael, as those two have swapped positions. He's done a 120.25. It's almost a full second quicker than the next quickest car. And here is that pass between Carmichael and Schmeeds. This is through NASCAR 1 and 2. Got a better run coming out of the infield and used the momentum onto the oval.
Certainly a good way to get it done. Stayed out of the way of the other driver there all the way up through the chicane and kept the momentum carrying through as he made his way back out onto in 4 there.
Schmeeds now starting to fall back. Now, to be fair to Schmeeds, his best lap is only 2/100ths of a second slower than Hunter Carmichael, so these two are of quite familiar pace. Now, with a lot of these cars going out, it is a very good thing for drivers like Barry Sanders and John Binder who need to point their way in. Here's Barry Sanders right now. He's up into the 4th position. However, with the positions that he's gaining from drivers falling out of this race, so is the last man who is on the inside looking out. That's Warren Young. We last saw him, he was in 10th. He's made his way up to 7th now because of the drivers in front of him running into issues.
And of course, for Sanders, something you don't want to see is Young, of course, gaining up those spots, and Sanders, of course, really not having anywhere to go as he's 5 seconds back from that battle in front of him. So if Young can make up even 1 or 2 more positions, that's starting to cut into those points that Sanders is desperately fighting for right now. Trying to stay in that 4th place spot.
Now, Sanders should receive 7 playoff points at the end of this stage, which is coming up at the end of lap 20. Young should only receive 4, and with how far apart they are on track, I believe that will pretty much cut the difference. So Sanders, I believe, might be ahead by 1 point where he is right now, but if you go back through enough SRM broadcasts, you should ride on board here for a moment with Belmonte. Let's take a lap on board here. See where he's at as far as gearing, how much he's having to feather this car. Not quite his fastest lap of the race thus far, but certainly close. It's amazing how fast these guys appear to be going. But David, you just heard how much off throttle and rolling time that these guys have in these cars just to get around here the way they need to.
And especially in the infield, it would be surprising to most fans to know that really in the infield, if you're getting much above third, if you ever even shift to third for some of these drivers, like that is a miracle in itself, right? Drivers, of course, taking, as you mentioned, a lot of time off throttle, really feathering the gas to make their way through some of these technical turns. And then, of course, getting all the way up to fourth and fifth gear on that backstretch, getting it woed back up all the way down. We saw Belmonte getting down to second gear there, going through that backstretch chicane. So drivers really working those gears, doing what they need to do, get the right speed to make those turns.
You also saw, I mean, it's the backstretch chicane is more than 3/4 of the way down the back straightaway. You have to start braking right as you get flat coming off the banking in order to just barely make that chicane, just to show you how long it takes to woe these cars up. It's unbelievable how heavy these things are, and most heavy things take a while to stop. As we work our way towards the end of this stage, Kenny Coppola, let's take the white flag on this stage, starting lap 20 right now. And he has had about as perfect a stage start as you could possibly have. Took the pole before, took the race lead from turn one, has not looked back since, and his closest competition caught the wall and ended up getting damage.
Certainly taking full advantage of everything that's been given to him so far, and has that big lead behind him. So no surprise here to see him kind of giving some time to a lapped car in front of him, and just taking his way through the turns, making sure he gets there nice and easy. Doesn't want to take any chances, secure those extra playoff points as he makes his way around here to the checkered, green-white checkered stage win at the Roval.
It's 14.5 seconds ahead of Hunter Carmichael right now. So that lead, and it's coming down because Coppola is not on the beans, if you were, at the moment. Coming out of NASCAR 4 and into the chicane, your Team Watson Racing setup stage 1 winner, Kenny Coppola, here at Charlotte. Waiting on the top 10 now to cross. Barry Sanders crosses. He will finish in 4th. Tim Wortman just behind. Randy Mullins coming through the final chicane now. Warren Young will collect his 4 stage points. Justin Belmonte with John Binder closely in tow. And Nick King coming through. It's going to be a fight between King and Matthews to see who will get the final stage point, and it will be the number 4 of Nick King. So the perfect stage 1. Your Team Watson Racing setup stage 1 winner, Kenny Coppola, out in front of the field for the entirety of the stage. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching the Moonshiners Racing League race, round of 12, race number 3 here from the Charlotte Motor Speedway, right here on Sim Racing Media. About to restart here for stage number 2 at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Round of 12, race number 3. Stage 1 winner Kenny Coppola did not win the race off of pit road. That would go to Hunter Carmichael. Take a look at the pit stop times. I guess we're too close on the thing there. So 9.8 seconds for Hunter Carmichael, 11.5 for Coppola, and then 12 seconds down the line from Schmitz, Sanders, and Young. It looked like either 2 tire or no tire stops at all here.
Certainly what I am thinking. If I remember correctly, for these Cup cars, your average stop for a 4-tire pit stop would be around the 13-second mark. So I have to think that some of those longer times might have just been some damage repair and making sure that car was topped off on fuel there.
Speaking of damage repair, a couple of drivers did extend their pit stops for damage repair. Ryan Huff, Nicholas Atwood, Kendall Leveren, Shane Davis, and Caden Nordfree no longer participating in the race. Nordfree made it the longest. He made it 10 laps into the race. Huff 2, Atwood 3, Davis and Leveren 8, before they pulled off and said no more. Kyle Holden in the number 59, who started on pole but had an incident, a rather peculiar one, towards the back end of the infield, is the only driver that is not currently on the lead lap as we get set to go from Charlotte Motor Speedway once again for stage number 2. Stage 2 will end at the end of lap 40. And for Kenny Coppola, David, this is quite a familiar spot that he was into at the start of the race.
As we were discussing as we were away there, possibly a little bit of strategy. So it did seem like he sat in his box for a long time, but it almost makes me wonder if he was waiting for another driver to come up so he could have that same spot on the restart again. Does make me wonder just a little bit.
Absolutely. And now with these guys on the cut line, over the cut line, under the cut line, gives these guys another chance to get back and try to gain some spots. So it's only going to get crazier from here on out as this race progresses. Coming back to the green flag here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Another great run for Kenny Coppola. He is way out in front of the race leader before they get to the start-finish line, and he is picking up right where he left off at the end of stage number 1.
Coppola certainly getting that restart zone figured out, knowing exactly when to go. Has a great fire off here. Already out to almost half a second lead over Carmichael. Carmichael, of course, not willing to let him go so easily. Trying to close that gap down here as they're going through the infield, making their way towards the back end. This high banked turn coming up over the top of the hill. Coppola and Carmichael still about 3/10 apart. Really, the only thing that's going to separate them now is who gets the better run coming into the open.
Sure, the series is going to have a look at that because I would say it's commonly known you cannot pass the leader before the start-finish line, and Coppola was a good 3 car lengths ahead of Hunter Carmichael when they got to the line. As Carmichael trying to maintain Jordan Schmitz, just behind him, and I believe Carmichael may have caught the wall coming out of that backstretch chicane because he was way off the pace, and Schmitz now takes the second spot.
Possibly a little bit of a miscue on the exit of the chicane there. Looks like Coppola, if he is going to get a black flag, is opting to stay out for at least another lap. So see if they are going to review it, but I believe because he was on the outside line that he won't automatically get that black flag. So something we'll have to keep an eye on over the next 2 or 3 laps or so.
It's a very similar spot in stage 1. He didn't get one there, so I would have to assume that he's good to go right now. There is the man who finished 7th at the end of stage 1. That is Warren Young. He is currently sitting in the 4th position as it sits right now. So a nice little recovery, good pit strategy has gotten Warren Young out into the top 5, as I believe Randy Mullins in the 45 has had an issue. This is coming off of turn 4. See what we see. Yep, this is off of 4. Oh, we saw the 4 do the same exact thing earlier on.
Too much gas, just a little too soon. Got to keep it rolling just a little bit longer there before you get full throttle.
Absolutely. As Jordan Schmeets coming under fire from Hunter Carmichael. You see Wortman. Wortman really on that grass. Coming into the final chicane as he's putting Barry Sanders under a lot of pressure. Again, these two were on the outside looking in coming into tonight's race, so they need these positions, and the guy they're chasing, unfortunately, is in front of them now.
Of course, Sanders just hoping that Wortman will back off a little bit so they can try to close this gap down to Young and get back up there, get those points, get those positions back, as he earned a few stage points here. So now the battle really is that close. Young, Sanders, Wortman, all right there around the cut line. Just trying to figure out points, see who's going to make it in, see who's not. Young, of course, loving this battle going on behind him. Sanders and Wortman fighting is only going to slow them down and keep giving Young a bigger advantage over the two.
We saw earlier on how big of an advantage that Barry Sanders had when two drivers were battling behind him. He gained about 3 seconds in the space of a half a lap, as Aaron Matthews now trying to hold station against Justin Belmonte in the 6. 7th and 8th position right here for the 5 and 6. And the 4 just behind them in position number 9. Big jump over that curb for Belmonte.
As mentioned at the initial start of the race, drivers being bunched up, this is the best time to make those passes and get those spots while you can. Try to hold them off for the relatively short run that we're going to have here to the end of stage 2. Looking at about another 12 laps or so before the stage comes out again. So drivers taking advantage, getting as much as they can out of these race cars, knowing that it's a very short run to that next pit stop.
Absolutely. After tonight, just a month's worth of races to go. This series following the True to Life NASCAR schedule, so we will be at Las Vegas next week. Pleasure to have you there with us one more time. Homestead Miami Speedway in 2 weeks' time. Then it'll be Martinsville to close out the round of 8, and then we'll go to the championship race at Phoenix in 1 month's time. So this long journey that started way back in February for these drivers is almost complete. The finish line is in sight as we see the battle for second place heating up between Jordan Schmeets and Hunter Carmichael, as Carmichael starting to reel Schmeets back in. Kenny Coppola, by the way, just did the fastest lap of the race of 1:19.01.
Knocking on the door of the 118s there. Coppola, of course, not slowing down any for these drivers. Schmeets and Carmichael battling it out in second and third right now. These drivers have seen quite a lot of each other, so no surprise to see them still together here as they work their way through the infield, coming around to the oval here in just a minute. Schmeets and Carmichael, I have a feeling, are going to be battling for the rest of the night. These drivers are running lap times that are so consistent, so close to each other. I don't think they're getting away from each other anytime soon.
That lap time in green that you saw in lap 27 for Schmeets, that was denoting his personal best lap. Hunter Carmichael last time around did his personal best lap. It was just a little bit quicker than what Schmeets was able to do on lap 27. As we're seeing these guys stay a lot closer here in this stage of the race. Guys maybe have figured out, okay, this is how my car is handling. This is how it's going to work. I can push maybe a little bit more now.
Certainly getting more comfortable, a little more settled in as we see that 83 machine working his way up towards the bumper of the 88 machine. That's Wortman and Sanders still continuing to battle it out for that 5th spot. And of course, Sanders working his way up towards Young. That battle now getting much closer than it was before, but again, if Workman continues to fight with Sanders, Young could get the advantage again and start sneaking away.
When we last left these two, this was a good 2-second gap between these two drivers. That is no more. As you see, it's only about a half a second between the pair of Sanders and Workman and Warren Young. So these two have really made some inroads on that number 8 machine. A couple of incidents to bring you up to date on. This is Chris Davis just a moment ago. Chris Davis was able to point his way in at the start of tonight's race. As that's, I believe, that's Davis going off, coming to the stop as per NASCAR rule. And Randy Mullins, we saw go off there a moment ago. This is right at the start of the stage. Oh, this is what we saw earlier. Oh, we may have gotten a little bit of help from the 4. We had an onboard camera last time. That looked a little bit different. While we were watching those replays, by the way, Warren Young has now gotten passed by both Barry Sanders and Tim Workman.
Drivers, of course, happy to see Young in their rear view. Young, of course, now looking at these drivers in front of him, knowing they made some good stage points. I am in danger here. He's really going to have to fight his way back, working their way through the infield right now. He'll get that high speed coming onto the oval, hoping for a mistake from Workman and Sanders in front of him to keep those playoff dreams alive right now.
And again, the big asterisk being my math skills. After the first stage, again, I believe Barry Sanders is in by 1 point, which means Warren Young would be out by 1 point with the way the stage is finished up, plus the stage bonus points. So my bad math included in that. We'll definitely be able to give you an accurate answer next week. I can promise you that. As that's Nick King and John Binder having a little bit of a kerfuffle going into the backstretch chicane.
King and Binder getting all tied up there heading into the chicane. Looks like there is a significant bit of damage on the front end of that 4 machine, so have to keep an eye on that. Make sure the car isn't running too warm on these short turns through the infield and getting that car wound up and turning properly in these low-speed turns.
This is the pass attempt as Binder on the inside. Well, they never touched each other, just trying to stay off each other. Those two took probably the most awkward lines you will ever see through the chicane, but hey, no harm, no foul, no position was swapped, no one was hit. So fair play to you as Barry Sanders, this is him getting past Warren Young, same spot in the racetrack a lap prior. Into the chicane, that's how it's done.
Certainly using the turns and the exits of turns to set up that pass, coming into some of those high-speed sections, as you mentioned. Just sort of how it gets done here at the Roval. Don't want to get too close, especially on these infield turns that are so narrow. Not a lot of room to go 2 by 2 as you're making your way through some of these slow-speed turns.
Battle for second still going on between Jordan Schmeetz and Hunter Carmichael. Kenny Coppola is out to a 7.5 second lead over this pair. Again, for those of you just joining us, drivers highlighted in yellow are the playoff eligible drivers. Drivers highlighted in green are the 2 drivers that have won races in this stage. It's a big battle here. This is for 7th. Or one races in this playoff round and have clinched their way into the next round. As Aaron Matthews has just lost out to Justin Belmonte. I think I could be wrong on this, but I do appreciate what the 6 of Belmonte has tried to do with that Warrior Wraps logo, because it looks at a glance like the Castrol GTX logo.
It is a very similar logo. Really do love the scheme. These cars all look fantastic. I know I mentioned it to you before the race. I just recently updated my hardware, so
Yes.
and these cars kind of all brand new for the first time yet again. So to see all these great schemes tonight, these drivers really giving it their all, showing off their sponsors and really getting some creative schemes on these cars, seeing some pink schemes out there for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Gotta love it. Just loving every second of it tonight.
Absolutely. It's been a great race to go along with it, and we are halfway through it now. Here at the Charlotte Roval, Kenny Coppola out in front, your Stage 1 winner. Jordan Schmeets, Hunter Carmichael, Barry Sanders, who you're seeing on screen right now, with Tim Wortman Jr. hustling behind him. Battle for 4th and 5th on screen. Battle for 2nd just in front of them. Carmichael was able to get around Schmeets at the end of Stage 1. He's got just about the same amount of time to do it from when he passed him in Stage 1 last go. It's really, really hard to do when you're as equally matched as these two are. The last lap time for these two, Schmeets a 1:20.63, Carmichael a 1:20.64, almost identical.
Gain a couple of tenths or even hundredths on a lap and seemingly lose it the next lap, right? These drivers, of course, been battling it out since the beginning of the stage. So Schmeets and Carmichael, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think they're getting away from each other anytime soon. In fact, this might be one of the closest battles we're going to see all night long. These two really just showing what it takes to be competitive and race clean for as close as these two drivers have been all night long. Really impressive to see.
It's an incredible race that these two have put on as well, to see how closely competitive and how closely matched these two are as we take a look at Jordan Schmeets. How close he gets that inside wall, and you can just barely see. We'll hide the standings there. That's how far away. If you take a look to the far left of your screen there, out the back window, that is how close Hunter Carmichael is, and it's about as far away, I should say, as Hunter Carmichael has been all stage.
Certainly keeping that rear view mirror full and keeping him in his thoughts. So plenty of work for these two drivers, Schmeets and Carmichael. As I mentioned, just really close, battling it out. I'm excited to see how this one ends between these two.
Sanders and Wortman have gotten closer than Schmeets and Carmichael over the last couple of corners. As this is the order that these two finished in, Sanders and Wortman. Sanders ahead of Wortman at the end of last stage. And Wortman really slow. Coming up the hill, it appeared, through turn 7. And up onto NASCAR 1. A little bit further behind is, I'll tell you what, I mean, I consider myself a decent racer. I definitely would have cracked under this pressure from Hunter Carmichael by now. It has been all stage.
These two drivers just absolutely mirroring each other all stage long. They haven't gotten away from each other, and we are now 17, 18 laps ahead of where that first stage caution came out. These guys were close then too. Sanders, Wortman, of course, battling it out still. They're close now. That battle really, really heating up, as that is a cut line battle. Young, of course, being just behind those two drivers. So excited to see where all these close battles are taking us, especially coming up towards the end of stage 2 here. Got to think there's some very exciting action in front of us for that final stage.
Boy, Carmichael's really trying to go for it now. You see him taking a little bit different exit lines through 6 and 7. Really swung the car out. trying to get the run almost into the wall there, coming back onto the NASCAR oval. Hunter Carmichael is really going for it now.
Closing in on those last few laps of the stage. If you're going to make a move, now's the time to do it. So Carmichael, of course, trying to get as close as he can to Schmitz and really line him up for one of these high-speed passes. As I mentioned earlier, it's really just the best way to pass here at the Roval. It can be done in some of these slower turns in the infield, but you really want to line it up to get that pass done on the oval and on the backstretch there before you get to the chicane.
Another driver on the cut line is John Bender. He was on the cut line, the outside looking in, coming into tonight. Currently running in the 10th position, trying to fight with the 4 of Nick King. He will get a stage point if he does not lose the 2.5 seconds of gap that he has to Randy Mullins. However, Mullins has been a little bit quicker than Bender. There you see it on screen. It's been about say on average, maybe about a half a second quicker a lap than Bender has
Certainly doing what he can to make up those positions for himself. And of course, the more points you gain, the less points there are available for those other playoff drivers. So get out there, get those stage wins, get those stage points while you can. Each point can make the difference, especially when it comes down in a couple of weeks when you're looking at that final 4 cut line.
Speaking of playoff drivers, Justin Belmonte trying to pick up an extra position, pick up an extra stage point on the back end of Aaron Matthews. Again, Matthews not in the playoffs. As Hunter Carmichael, has he had an incident? I believe he has. What happened to Hunter Carmichael? Into turn 1. Oh, too much gas too early and hit that wall hard and then backs it into the outside wall.
Having some issues, and unfortunately it looks like there was some heavy damage to the front end of that 3 machine, so got it towed on back to pit road, getting the damage repaired now, but that leaves Schmitz relatively unopposed for second. Of course, that moves Sanders, Wortman, and Young, everybody behind them, up a position. So gaining some valuable points there, but Young still kind of on the outside, almost looking in on Wortman and Sanders right now. So 5 seconds back from that battle between those two. Of course, Wortman a couple seconds behind Sanders at this point. Really, really making that battle for the cut line close, as these drivers are in the exact position they need to be to start making those numbers line up and start pointing their way into that round of 8.
And there's Tim Wortman right there. You see all of the right front corner panel damage that he has. That was him trying to lock up to avoid body slamming into the number 3, coming through turn 3, or coming through turn 2, I should say. Didn't realize that he had towed it back to the pits. Ends up hitting the wall, and he lost 4 seconds to Barry Sanders because of it. So that will pretty much secure a 3rd place finishing position in the stage for Sanders. As coming down to the stripe once again, Kenny Coppola, your winner here in stage number 2. As always, brought to you by Team Watson Racing Setups. Jordan Schmitz will come home in 2nd, Sanders 3rd, Wortman 4th. There's Warren Young. Coming home in 5th, Aaron Matthews with Belmonte right behind him. Waiting on Nick King, who has lost the position not just to John Binder, but to Randy Mullins as well. There is your top 10. But once again, your stage winner, Kenny Coppola, has taken the first 2 stages. He's taken both green and white checkered flags. Can he take the black and white one? We'll find out after this break. Under our second stage caution of the race, Kenny Coppola has won both of the two stages that have been run as we run to the finish here tonight at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Now, with this being a first time doing the series, and there are going to be some things that we learn along the way on the first night, I have just realized, looking through past messages here, that Team Watson Racing Setups is not the stage sponsor. It is in fact RS Button Boxes, so I do apologize. I grovel at your feet, as Kenny Coppola is the Stage 1 and Stage 2 RS Button Box stage winners of the day, as we're getting set to go green once again.
Driver starting to stack them back up here. Lights out on the pace car as we should be going green this time by.
Kenny Coppola, however, does have the Team Watson Racing Setups fastest lap today, so that'll work for him. Justin Belmonte right now is the Team Watson Racing Setups biggest mover of the race thus far. He is plus 10 up into 6th position. And Kyle Holden will come away with the Team Watson Racing Setups pole award. So Team Watson was a sponsor to some capacity. However, it was not the sponsor that I had thought it was before 5 minutes ago.
Drivers working their way around here as we make our way back out onto the oval, and short time from now making their way into that back chicane, and very shortly after that we'll be back to green flag racing. Of course, we've seen Coppola very dominant today, especially on these restarts, just really having something figured out with that restart zone. Excited to see how he handles it here. Of course, choosing that outside lane position where he has been this whole time, so he's very familiar with where he needs to be for that restart zone. And of course, is there going to be anybody else in the field that can possibly give him a challenge? You have Smeets there to his inside. Does Smeets have something for him? This is his first time starting up here on the front row, so excited to see what he can do and see if he can challenge that 77 machine here on that restart, get things going, and see if we could have a different leader maybe, perhaps, for the next lap that they run green.
Kenny Coppola has led all 43 laps that have been completed in this race, and as you mentioned, he is electing the outside line this time. He was forced out there the previous two, but being forced out there, but taking it now being the control car, as Jordan Schmeets will line up on that bottom line. Barry Sanders and Tim Wortman on row number 2. Only one retirement during that stage. Hunter Carmichael becomes the 6th driver to retire from this race after stage number 2. Getting back to green flag racing, coming on to the start-finish line, going on green. Green flag is in the air. Final stage is off and running.
As per usual, Coppola off to a great start. Schmeets trying to keep up behind him. Coppola again already out to into the next turn here. Looks like he really has everything figured out. The challenge now is going to be for Wortman, Sanders, Young. Those drivers right around the cut line, very close to each other right now in the running. Hoping to see those drivers really battle it out here, get this thing sorted out to see who's going on to that round of 8.
Barry Sanders has lost 2 spots off of the restart. Lost it out to Wortman, who's now in 3rd, and also lost out to Justin Belmonte, who's now running in 4th position. Warren Young, the driver he's trying to beat on the cut line, is now right behind Sanders, running in that 6th position. Drivers,
of course, using everything they can, especially at this point in the race. very short time here in stage 3 to get things done. Looking at about another 20 or so laps, and we'll start wrapping things up. So drivers get these positions now while they're nice and close together, but certainly enough time to get things sorted between these drivers as we see Sanders still battling it out with Young there. Very close race, about 0.3 of a second off as they're coming across the line again.
Young getting very, very close there as the championship hopes for John Binder may have gone up in smoke. This is what just happened to him a moment ago going into the chicane, the backstretch chicane. He is going to jump over the second curb, take it way too wide and catch the outside wall, allowing 3 drivers to go by, and that is certainly not going to help his case as a driver who was on the outside looking in here earlier on in this race is now followed behind Chris Davis, who is mathematically in. Kyle Holden, who won back at Texas to clinch his spot, is who has gotten by him, as Randy Mullins continuing to try to work on Aaron Matthews. Got a very good run coming out of the chicane. He's going to jump under him, and he's going to take that 7th spot.
Working that high-speed corner, and of course coming to the front stretch chicane now, getting it woed back up. Mullins over Matthews. That was a great pass. Looks like Matthews is now getting passed again by Davis. Davis, of course, working his way up through the field a little bit, trying to get some playoff points for himself and keep that victory, or the playoff hopes alive, rather, for the round of 8.
I believe that was Holden in the 59 that just got through Matthews. And while we were looking at that, Tim Wortman and Justin Belmonte have both gotten around Jordan Schmeeds for the 2nd position. Here is how this happened. This is Tim Wortman going into turn number 1, gets a good run, puts the dive on. Move done. Belmonte right there as well, and through turn 2, he's going to follow him right on through. One of those moments where you're very, very happy that it's a road course. Somebody else opens the door, does all the work, and you just slide right on through.
Right place, right time, just using that work of the driver in front of you. And these drivers, again, running into that grass on that chicane. Just so impressed how they're able to keep that speed up, keep that car under control as they're trying to slow down for that turn. I'd be so nervous trying to make that move myself.
I would never. I would absolutely never. Kenny Coppola right now is trying to guarantee that he wins the Team Watson Racing Setups Fastest Lap Award. Just set a time 1:18.60. By far and away the fastest lap of the race tonight, by almost a second.
Stage 1 knocking on the door of the 1:19s. Stage 2, of course, nailing down that 1:19 lap time. Here in Stage 3, proving us wrong yet again. I wasn't sure that we would see it today, but going sub 1:19, making his way down into the 1:18s. Congrats to Coppola there, setting yet another blazing lap, and of course getting out to a great lead here, having a 6-second advantage as we look at it right now over the 2nd place position, where Wortman currently is battling with Belmonte, has about a 2nd advantage over him right now.
2nd fastest lap, by the way, is, as you would imagine from if you watched from earlier in this race, is Kyle Holden, 1:19.46. And Coppola just did a 1:18.55, so he took another 0.05 out of it. And now his Holden by himself is going to have to find about a full second in order to try to reclaim that fastest lap.
And of course their advantage, Coppola having the clean air, not having to worry about cars in front of him at the moment, so holding the car to chase him down if he can, but certainly running out of time to make up that much time and that much space while having to deal with traffic.
Kyle Holden right now as he clips that wall that claimed his front bumper earlier on tonight. Kyle Holden running in 7th right now, 13 seconds adrift of the race leader. However, he does have Warren Young in the number 8 directly in front of him, and that is for position between these two as we'll ride on board with Kyle Holden as he comes through oval 3 and 4. And right to that bottom. How much grass does he take? A little bit, nothing too severe. Great run out of that corner, though, out of that chicane going into turn 1.
And of course, this position, more bragging rights for Holden than anything, as he is already locked in. Young, of course, doing everything he can to keep him behind him. Doesn't want to see Holden get by here, as that means he is losing more points to the driver in front of him of Sanders and, of course, Wortman, who were on that cut line outside looking in. Young being that driver that was on the cut line, holding that last 8th spot.
If I can remember correctly, I believe Sanders has finished in 3rd in both stage one. Oh, no, he finished 4th in stage 1 and finished 3rd in stage 2. So that would give him 15 stage points. Warren Young finished 7th in stage 1, which is the position that he is in right now. And 5th, I want to say, in stage 2.
I believe you are correct there. As it stands right now, I believe that Young is on the outside looking in, slowly seeing those chances slip away. But as you mentioned earlier, quick math, just not in our favor today.
Oh, and around he goes!
Some trouble for that 8 machine as he spins in that front stretch chicane. Seemingly backs it into the wall. Doesn't seem to hurt him a whole lot as he's able to get it going back in the right direction here, but does lose another position or 2 coming out of that chicane.
And you can see the deck lid is ajar on that number 8 machine. He's going to lose 2 more spots. So yeah, at this point, it pretty much is those 5 points have been made up in stage points. So yeah, Warren Young is in a position now where he needs to beat the 88. And he is now 4 positions and 10 seconds now behind the man he needs to face. And look at how hard he's pushing that car through turn 8. Now sliding it through. He's starting to see his playoff hopes dashed in front of his eyes.
Certainly driving possibly a little scared right now. Needs to get his mind back in, keep this car under control. Of course, we have seen from second place, third place drivers just making mistakes. So there is still hope for Young. Seeing the 83 machine, the 33 machine there, coming right up to the bumper of Young. That is Binder in that machine. Almost having some big issues there in the bus stop back chicane here at Charlotte.
Yeah, Binder jumped the curb on entry, which forced Young to jump that second curb in order to keep from getting run over. And now Young is in a position where he needs to just calm down and try to find the line again. Just find the rhythm again. And that pace will come back. He does need the pace to come back rather quickly. As we see, Barry Sanders has now lost the position to Kyle Holden, so that will help Warren Young out a little bit, but not enough, as Holden, for the first time since his spin at the end of stage 1, is now back up in the top 5.
Holden, of course, just slowly and methodically piecing things together. As you mentioned, having that bad luck early on, has found his way back up to that 5th place position, running some great laps, competing with some great lap times. Is it enough to start closing this gap down towards those leaders, and maybe just enough time to make his way all the way back up and possibly challenge that 77 machine for the win here today?
He's been a little bit quicker than Jordan Schmeeds, who is not far off of Justin Belmonte, only about a second and a half separating Belmonte and Schmeeds. Tim Wortman right up there as well. You see him. That's peculiar. Justin Belmonte right now running in the 3rd position. This is the highest he's been tonight. Started back in 16th. He was placed first of the non-qualifiers, or the drivers that did not set a qualifying time. So there is Belmonte there. Again, winner at Talladega last week. A couple positions ahead of the winner at Texas, which has locked them into the round of 8. Meanwhile, Kenny Coppola out to almost a 10-second lead, looking for a season-high 8th victory on the season.
Having a little bit of moment there coming out of the front chicane. Saw him sliding that back end, maybe having some fun and celebrating a little bit. So good to see that 77 machine working, but it ain't over yet. There's still time to go, so keep it straight, keep it focused here.
Of his 7 previous wins are Coda and Sonoma. So he has won 2 of the 4 road course races of the season. He finished 3rd at Watkins Glen and did not participate in the race on the streets of Chicago. So Coppola has been very, very quick on these road courses. He's also won at New Hampshire, Kansas, won the first race at Talladega, Martinsville, and probably a bad omen for the rest of the field starting next week with where we're going. He also won at Las Vegas earlier this season as well. He has now opened up that lead to 10 seconds, and we're in a spot right now as Kyle Holden is coming down pit road. He is giving up the 5th position and coming down pit road. Did he not fuel up enough to make it to the end?
That we are going to have to keep an eye on. I would say that there had to be something with the handling of the car that he just wasn't happy with. But certainly looks like he's only taken fuel here on this stop, so we'll have to see how it plays out for Holden right now.
Yeah, it's a full tank of fuel, no tires for the number 59. So he has filled that car up with 12 laps to go. From what we have been able to tell, the leaders up here at the front have not taken tires at all this race. We've showed you the pit stops. They've either been 2 tire stops at most or just fuel only. All of the pit stops at the end of the last stage were fuel only. You see that by the time. 6.5, 7, 8, 6.9, 7.5. Mullins, that would have been Randy Mullins in the 54. That would have been a 4-tire stop. Warren Young, fuel only. Binder, 4 tires and damage repair. King, 4 tires and damage repair. As Holden now working on the back of the aforementioned Nick King. Just to get him back into the top 10. Makes the dive into turn 1, and off they go.
Holden, of course, being very quick, very patient all day long, so it was surprising to see him make that pit stop, but of course feeling that he needed more fuel to get it done, so he'll work his way back up through a couple of positions here, and looks like he'll find his way to a finish within our top 10 today.
Tim Wortman was 7 points out of the championship. And again, only 1 spot to gain Kyle Holden and Belmonte clinching on wins. Coppola, both Shane and Chris Davis, Wayne Bowen clinching just by starting this race. Randy Mullins clinching after completing stage 1. So that left Warren Young, Barry Sanders, John Binder, Tim Wortman, and Chad Sullivan to fight for the final playoff spot. And Wortman, a second place finish here, might just give him enough over Sanders, who's 3 spots behind.
But of course, Sanders having better finishes in stage 1 and stage 2 over Wortman has to keep an eye on those positions in front of Sanders right now. Make sure that those cars stay between himself and Sanders. Sanders is very close in the points as it would run right now, that 8th place spot being up in the air in contention for both of them.
Well, the good news is that Justin Belmonte is right behind him, so that's 1 position. Jordan Schmeeds is 2.5 seconds behind Belmonte, but he's almost 6 seconds ahead of Sanders. So unless one of those 2, or even all 3 of them, have an issue, Sanders is pretty much going to finish this race in 5th.
Absolutely right, but right now it looks like the battle is heating up between Belmonte and Wortman as they are now down to around 0.3 of a second. Have to wonder if Belmonte is going to let him off easy, let him keep that spot, knowing what that is at stake for Wortman, or if Wortman is going to have to fight and battle to maintain this position as we are now 10 to go.
If you've happened to notice that the gap to the race lead has gone down, well, there's a reason for that. This is Kenny Coppola just a moment ago coming through the final chicane, rolling along the wall, too hot into turn 1, into the fence. Oh, that's a broken front end. Coppola's going to have to pit. He is in. Kenny Coppola may have just given away this race.
And of course, entirely changing everything. If Wortman is able to hold off Belmonte here, secure the win, he would also secure his way into the round of 8. Not having to worry about how many positions ahead of Sanders he is. Sanders going to have to do everything he can here to gain all those spots and certainly hope that something happens to Wortman here so that he can point his way into that 8th and final spot.
You don't need to worry about points if you win the race, and Tim Wortman right now is in a position, and what a foolish mistake by Kenny Coppola. He was leading by 15 seconds. There was no reason at all to push. And yeah, his car is broken. That car is not going to get any better. That left front suspension is right front suspension, pardon me, is broken on that car.
Still looking like that tire might not fully be in line, so we'll have to keep an eye on him, but he's certainly going to do everything he can here, coming back out in the 10th place position as we run right now. See if he can make up any positions and maybe gain a spot or 2 on Holden and Matthews here before the end of this race.
Just an unnecessary, foolish mistake from the 77, and now that has opened up this race entirely into a completely different direction. Belmonte, 0.7 of a second behind the race lead. Jordan Schmeeds, who could upset both of them as a non-playoff driver, winning this race, running in 3rd, just close enough to where he can capitalize on those 2 if something were to happen, but far enough away that if something were to happen, he's not going to get caught up in it, in theory.
Certainly all about being in the right place at the right time. Right now, Wortman, of course, being in the right place that he needs to be, just hoping that Belmonte, already being locked in, won't race him too hard and cost both of them a win here. Of course, that win for Wortman means getting into the next round, and if there was an incident that would cause him to fall back, Sanders only being 8 seconds back. If he can't get it going quick enough, Sanders might point his in over Workman. So certainly some very heavy playoff implications playing out here as we're about to come to 7 to go.
Anything can happen, and look at 4 tires on the grass for Wortman. He has been the one that has been extending that track out as far as that all race long. And to his credit, it is absolutely 100% working for him, but Belmonte looking a little bit better here in the middle of this racetrack.
Certainly road course racing is all about where you can find your time. Is one sector better than the other? And then, of course, adding all those sectors together, can my lap time beat the guy behind me? Right now, Workman doing just enough to stay in front of Belmonte as they're holding steady right around that half second to 7/10 of a second gap at any given point around this track. Smeets, of course, looks like he's making up just a tiny bit of time, going from 2.5 seconds earlier, making his way up to about 2.3 right now. We'll keep an eye on that. As I said, 7 to go, shortly coming to 6 to go. Workman is certainly keeping his hands full as he has a big mirror full of Belmonte, knowing that half a second really isn't that big of a gap here at the Charlotte Roval.
Yeah, but Belmonte, you could see, has been marginally quicker than Wortman over these last couple of laps, and another big swing to that outside, trying to open up that first corner of the chicane as much as he possibly can. Gets a good run out of it, about 7/10 of a second, and oh no, Wortman's got in too deep. Wortman's into the wall coming through turn 1. That gives the lead to Justin Belmonte, and now Jordan Schmeets and Wortman are side by side and sliding through turn number 2. Wortman has possibly just given up a playoff spot.
Belmonte to the lead. Schmeets now also gaining the position, grabbing second away from him. That puts Wortman and Sanders only 1 spot apart. Sanders, of course, having the advantage of those stage points. It is a very close race right now, seeing who will make their way into that 8th and final spot. We are 6 to go. Schmeets, Belmonte, Wortman, throw a blanket over these guys because anything can happen. We have seen it here today. Leaders having issues. 2nd, 3rd place, 4th place. Doesn't matter where you are on this track. Trouble can find you anywhere.
See how quickly it happens. Just a little bit too excited going into turn 1, and then there was contact between the two as Wortman tried to close the door to not lose that 2nd position, but he has definitely lost it. He's still on the back of the group though, but Belmonte, with the contact between the 41 and the 83, has pulled out to 1.3 seconds.
Belmonte certainly doing what he can to extend this lead, knowing that those two behind him are trying to battle for that 2nd place position. Right now, Schmeets looks like he is closing in ever so slightly each lap, so Schmeets could pull the upset here, being a non-playoff driver, taking away this win from these two. Of course, Wortman then chasing down Belmonte if Schmeets is able to get the lead, trying to gain that extra spot to get those points over Sanders to ensure that he is in that round of 8.
See on the bottom of the screen, there was no ever so slightly about it. He pulled in 6/10 of a second through the first sector. He's pulled in about 7/10 of a second over the course of the lap. Now it's starting to go the other way as Belmonte has pulled the lead back out to over a second, but the first couple of corners were a disaster for the number 6 of Belmonte. However, it looks as though he is recovering, but Schmeets has a better run through the backstretch chicane. He's starting to bring it back in as we come to 4 to go.
As I mentioned just a few laps ago, it's really about piecing each sector together. If Schmeets can piece together even 2 sectors that are just slightly better than Belmonte, he has the advantage here to gain those positions and really upset these playoff drivers.
You can see it there. Overall, now Belmonte beat him in the final 2 sectors, but overall, about 4/10 of a second faster on that lap was Schmeets. And how about this for Belmonte? For momentum to win at Talladega last week by 4/100ths of a second. to lock himself into the next round, didn't have to worry, and then to come into this race here at Charlotte, qualify 16th, placed first of the drivers that did not put down a qualifying lap, and win back-to-back races before going into the round of 8. What a finish to this round for the 6.
Certainly a great way to set up momentum heading into Vegas next week. That 6 machine looks like he is rolling the dice early, starting to pull out just a little bit this lap on Schmitz, over a second lead again. So keeping an eye on it. He knows what he has to do.
Season. One of his 4 previous wins. He's won at Charlotte, Atlanta, Richmond, Talladega last week, and now possibly here as Schmitz has really closed the gap in. It's almost a half a second now.
Schmitz really picking it up here in Sector 2, I believe. Belmonte going to have to start gaining that time back as they head into the oval here. Looks like he clipped the wall coming out of that exit of the infield. Getting back up to speed here, coming down through the chicane. Schmitz now just 0.3 of a second back from our leader, Belmonte.
Schmitz really pulling it in. Schmitz looking for his first win of the year. Finished second in the April race at Talladega earlier this year. That was his best finish of the season. Second place back in April. He has not finished on the podium since. He's finished 4th 4 times since that race at Talladega on April 26th. Two laps to go here at Charlotte, and it looks as though, again, quick math, very unofficial math, it looks like Barry Sanders will make it into the next round as the 8th and final driver, running in 4th right now.
Schmitz still chasing Belmonte down here. Belmonte able to open up that gap in that first sector to almost a second, but again, here in the infield, looks like Schmitz is just a little bit faster, closing it down to about 0.6 to half a second before they make their way back out onto the oval here. Certainly a battle of getting hot at the right time. Belmonte, of course, picking up that lead due to an incident with Coppola.
It has been a final 10 laps for the ages, certainly, as Coppola runs off, breaks the left front suspension, and then Wortman just goes too deep into turn number 1, gives up what would have been a sure playoff spot, clinching his way in with a win. As Justin Belmonte, coming through the final chicane, just 0.3 of a second separates him and Jordan Schmitz. Coming to the line, white flag is out, sponsored by Team Watson Racing Setups.
One more lap to go. Belmonte has the advantage, half a second over Schmitz right now. Of course, this is our closest battle on track. These guys not willing to cede an inch. Schmitz being faster in the infield here. Can he make up that 0.7 of a second as the gap runs right now on Belmonte? Belmonte, of course, having the advantage over the last few laps, doing a great job holding Schmitz at bay. Making their way through the infield here. Belmonte has historically been faster coming around this oval and making his way towards that back chicane.
Schmitz gained about 0.2 of a second there, but has now lost it coming back onto the oval. Belmonte running right in the middle of the racetrack, half a second separating the top 2. Schmitz has been very, very good in heavy braking zones. We're coming up to 2 more here. This is the first one. Belmonte is going to weather the storm here in the first one, but it's going to be Schmitz who has a little bit of a draft coming through Charlotte 3 and 4.
Just one more chicane separates these drivers from the checkered flag. Belmonte coming around now into a hard braking zone. Schmitz doing everything he can, trying to get to his bumper. Belmonte around on the front stretch. Schmitz spins. Belmonte comes to the flag as our winner. Schmitz coming home second. Wortman in third.
And for Justin Belmonte, he will win 2 of the 3 races in the round of 12. And I believe, as rough guesses can get, Barry Sanders will be the final transfer spot into the round of 8. What a race here tonight. Boy, the Roval put on a good show.
We've certainly seen a little bit of everything tonight. Trouble showing these drivers its ugly face. Many different spots throughout this track. We had incidents from first place, solo car spins, cars getting together with each other in the midfield pack, in the infield. Certainly a little bit of everything. But tonight, the number 6 machine, Belmonte, bringing it home yet again in this round of 12, doing what he needed to do to really keep some of these other drivers out of that round of 8. Of course, Workman and Sanders now being up in the air. Will they advance to that round of 8? As you mentioned, we believe right now that Sanders will make that transfer spot.
So we are working on getting these drivers in here for interviews. We have our race winner right now as he is going to burn it down. What a momentum boost for Justin Belmonte to take his 5th win of the season going into the round of 8. David, you're with him now.
Justin, this is David and Frank up in the booth. You got us.
What's happening, guys?
Congratulations, man. What a win. What a way to win. Exciting action there at the end of the Roval. Tell me, what was going through your mind there in the last couple of laps right before Workman had his issue? Were you thinking that you could make it to him?
I didn't think I was going to get to him. He was ahead of me the entire race, and I hate that that happened to him. I was really hoping he would get the win to get through the next round. But that was super lucky. I mean, I don't think I was the winning car, but I'll take that. That's for sure.
Certainly in the right place at the right time. Looks like you ran a great race today. Love to give you this opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Shout out Team Watson and Warrior Racing and everybody that helps us out during the week. Our team is pretty awesome. We're firing right now, so we're doing pretty good.
Justin, congrats again. Looking forward to next week at Las Vegas. Hope to see you there and hope to see you punch your ticket from the round of 8 down to that final 4. Congrats again.
You guys putting it on.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you very much. Our race winner, Justin Belmonte. Next up, our second place finisher, Jordan Schmeets. Jordan came very, very close. It looked like it was going to be third for a little while. Then it looked like it was going to be second. And boy, did you come close to taking your first win of the season.
Yeah, man, I missed a shift going across the start-finish line. I was in third, and I just kind of gave myself a little too much room, but it was a good run. Track was weird, and the rear tires were burning like 15 degrees cooler, so that last run, I was just trying to take care of the fronts and back up all my braking points, and I started making ground at the end, but we got into it. But it was a fun race, man. It was awesome.
How difficult does a race like this get, knowing that it's mostly just about staying on the racetrack, letting people around you try to make a mistake, but also trying to keep up that pace so you can fight with drivers around you?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely got to go fast because once you get behind somebody, it's so hard to pass. But at the same time, you got to take care of your stuff too. So it's difficult walking that line, if you know what I mean. But if you can do it, definitely fun. But that was a great race. And just wish I had a couple more laps.
Absolutely. We head to Las Vegas to begin the round of 8 next week. Unfortunately, you're not in the playoffs for a championship. However, you are definitely in a spot to spoil. Best finish since April 26th. What's the momentum? What's the feelings looking like going into Vegas?
Yeah, man, I was going to give it my all. I really want to get a win. I started like 7 or 8 rounds late in the season, so I missed the playoffs by a few points, but I'm just out here to upset the field and hopefully take home a W.
All right. Anyone you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
I just get all my buddies at Beast Mode and everybody that puts all the time in and shares information with me. Shane, Kenny, Chris, Wayne, all those guys. Appreciate it.
All right, your second place finisher tonight, Jordan Schmitz, bud, congratulations.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
You too. And now it will be our third place finisher, Tim Wortman. David, you're with him now.
Tim, this is David up in the booth. Congrats on making the podium there, doing what you needed to do to earn those points despite having some troubles late in the race. Seeing Kenny Coppola crash out in front of you and then gaining the lead, what did that feel like late in this race, coming to just 10 to 12 laps to go?
It felt like it made me overdrive the car, and I lost the race because of it. I knew Kenny had the ability, Kenny can make mistakes sometimes, and I just needed to stay clean. And whenever I saw him come down pit road, I was trying to ignore that it had happened. And I saw Schmitz coming from up behind me in Belmo, and I just tried to pick up my lap times and just missed my mark into turn one and almost took Schmitz with me trying to gather it up. And I apologized to him like 5 times for that already, but it's amazing the way I lose races in this league. That was definitely one that I had handed to me, and that one's gonna rank up there as one of the worst losses that I've had in a while. But definitely fun to finish third. Did what I needed to do. I think I probably missed the next round of the playoffs by 1 point because of it.
Certainly not the way that we want to see a driver come home in third, but congrats again on making the podium. As you mentioned, next round of the playoffs, looking forward to Vegas. If you do make your way into that round of 8, how are you feeling heading into Vegas next week?
Oh, I mean, a track like Vegas is right in my wheelhouse. I'm very good there.
Looking forward to seeing what you can do at Vegas. Like to give you this opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
I want to shout out to Chris Spear, my teammate that's watching. Sorry he couldn't be here tonight. It's Jameson too. I hope everything's well. He had an emergency, couldn't make it. I want to welcome a new team sponsor to Warrior Racing of Bruzy, Warrior Wraps, the whole Warrior team, and Oconee Hill Products, and Advanced Sim Racing for putting me in this awesome rig that's got me running so well lately. So I really hope I can move on because I've really stepped up my game here since I got moved into the new house and the new rig.
Congrats again on the third place finish, and we will certainly be keeping an eye on those points. Looking forward to next week at Las Vegas.
And congrats to Belmo. He's putting together a heck of a back half of the season.
Absolutely. There is your third place finisher tonight, Tim Wortman. So that will pretty much do it for us here tonight, David. Very nice first impression, I will say. We know these road course races can get a little tedious, they can get a little long, especially with guys running mostly by themselves. But when it came down to it, I would much rather have a more entertaining final 10 laps and have to wait for it instead of all the entertainment coming in the first 10 and then it kind of dying off at the end.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Great race, great drivers out there showing us everything they had. Of course, these playoff drivers giving it everything they got and making it interesting all the way up to the end. Still going to have to wait to see how this all plays out and see who makes it into that round of 8.
Now, we are anticipating, we know Belmonte and Holden will definitely make it into that next round. We're waiting on a couple of other names as to whether or not they will make it in. We know for a fact that Holden, Belmonte, Coppola, both Shane and Chris Davis, Wayne Bowen, and Randy Mullins did make it, so those are the 7 that made it. We are anticipating that Barry Sanders has made it into the round of 8, leaving Warren Young, John Binder, Tim Wortman, and Chad Sullivan as the 4 drivers that have dropped out. But again, my math skills and not being able to see it and not knowing for sure, but that's what we are anticipating, is that Sanders will join that final group in for the final 3 races before the championship race.
Looking forward next week to Las Vegas, a high-speed track, and seeing who our 8 drivers are. Certainly should hold some great racing, and of course, round of 8 racing, reset everything and see who can maybe advance their way into the Final Four next week at Las Vegas.
Absolutely. 2 mile-and-a-halves and 2 short tracks left to go on the season. That is all we have. Let's take a look at the finishing results here for tonight's race. The 20 drivers and finishers here tonight. Justin Belmonte taking his 5th win of the season. Jordan Schmitz, again, with his best finish since he finished 2nd at Talladega back at the end of April. So a very good run for him. Tim Wortman, we saw he came so close to locking himself into the championship, the final 8. But unfortunately had that lockup, got a little overeager, as he mentioned. Barry Sanders, Randy Mullins, your top 5. Kyle Holden, Warren Young, John Binder, Aaron Matthews, and Nick King, your top 10. Chris Davis, Paul Whitley, Kenny Coppola is going to come up 2 laps short of finishing this race after winning both of the first 2 stages and leading a vast majority of this race. Wayne Bowen, Hunter Carmichael, your top 15. Caden Norfrey, Kendall Leveren, Shane Davis, fortunately for him, who was already locked in, finishes 18th. Nicholas Atwood and Ryan Huff round out your top 20 and your finishing order. So that will do it for us here tonight. For my broadcast partner, David Motispaw, I am Frank Marchese. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. We will see you all next week from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway in Las Vegas, Nevada. And folks, remember, as you walk down the road of life, please don't play in traffic. Good night.